Hello and welcome to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You could tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You could tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. And you can now also like us on our new Facebook page at Greater STL Sports Network on Facebook. And we'll talk about that Oshie trade that happened. We'll also get to a little bit of that hacking scandal. And we'll go just all over the place after that, including STL FC and the River City Rascals in the hometown rundown. But we'll start it off with things on the field for the Cardinals and pitching. I mean, that's all you can say. You've had a guy called up who's not getting hit every single time. But he's getting talked about because he won 2 games with you with his offense. But them games, the Cardinals only scored 5 runs in them 2 games. Pitching. They allowed only 2 in them games. And it's just a rotating door. It's just going in a circle and circle and circle and circle. Definitely with the starting pitching. Now the bullpen is faltering here and there. But every time one falters, they come right back the next outing. And Maynard's got a win after a bad outing. Choate's come in and done his job in 2 straight games. And then Rosenthal losing a game in there, and he comes back and gets a very easy save. And it's not like things have been happening to help this at all. Jaime finally got sent to the DL with that groin injury that you really don't know what's going on with that situation. All the Cardinals saving him for after the All-Star break. Is it really a lot worse than what they thought at first? Is it a lot worse than what Jaime thought when it first happened? But then Tim Cooney comes up. He has a horrible start in his first outing. But then he comes up, gives you a quality start. 6 innings, 2 earned runs. You had Jay come down. The aforementioned Tommy Pham comes up, wins 2 games for you. You bring up some pitching depth to help with Cooney. And sending down Greg Garcia to AAA, even after the big home run he had. And that's just Matheny playing favorites. But then you have Mitch Harris called up for depth. You have Belial go down. Another one of your bullpen guys who's been going out there and getting a lot of innings for you. Him and Villanueva have been your innings eaters out of that bullpen so far this season, which has been saving you in these 2-1 and 3-1 games. 2-1. I mean, like I said last week, the Cardinals allowed 2 runs, or the Cardinals score more than 2 runs, and it's a win. And a lot of that's to do with the bullpen. Belial, Villanueva, even though he's had a couple bad outings. You have Manus, Seagrass, Choate. Hatley came up when Belial came down, and then that game that Manus kind of coughed it up. It was 2-1 when he came in. Hatley came in there, and his first career outing went in there, even though he allowed a hit and allowed a couple of inherited runners, still went out there and got an inning of no earned runs. So it's just weird that you want to talk about the offense. That Tommy Pham comes up and hits a home run and a double to get all 3 RBIs in one game. Gets 2 runs in another game. And he's only batting .273. And after tonight's game, which is right now in a rain delay, he's down to .200. But yeah, that's all we were talking about. And you're begging for offense. You're begging for it. And this was like a streak that the Cardinals, where it was gonna be offense or nothing. I mean, you lost 4 straight, scoring a total of 6 runs. 3 1-run games. You win your next 2 by only scoring a total of 5 runs, and you're winning 2-0 against the Cubs. On just a sac fly and a single. So the runners in scoring position and Powers all of a sudden disappeared, and you're just begging for something. But you might be looking for a false hope. And that thing to where you might want to trade a Garcia or a Martinez or a Gonzalez for pitching, that should be a look in the rearview mirror now. You need some kind of hitter, but you're not going to get it at the positions that you already have filled. The only one that you could get it at is first base. And I don't understand why Scruggs isn't playing there. And that's where I'm getting at where Matheny plays favorites. Sending Greg Garcia down where he showed that he plays relatively good defense and maybe can contribute something offensively where you know that Pete Kozma can't. Now, Kozma's out of options, so you'd have to run him through waivers and all of that. And maybe the Cardinals are just begging for a first-round pick to finally come through. But you're kind of at the point in this season with the offense that has to go by the wayside. I don't know what you could get for Kozma. Now that he's playing even worse than he was before. I think that's why the Cardinals were keeping it up here to kind of give them some kind of, or give them and other teams some kind of false thing that he could be a major league player. But he's not hitting for anything. And he doesn't hit for power. And Greg Garcia showed him he might have a little pop in that bat. And as many games as you had to play Peralta because your only backup is Kozma, he could be a viable replacement when needed. Because Kozma's not it no more. And I got this feeling that when Jay comes back, most likely Pham's going to go down and he's going to get some considerable amount of playing time again in center field over Grichuk. And the whole Tommy Pham situation kind of messes you up. Because if he starts hitting well and starts showing the pop and actually becomes a leadoff hitter that we needed to kind of spark the offense, then what do you do with Grichuk when Halladay comes back? Because they plan on Halladay coming back here in the next series against Pittsburgh. And you heard two big series right now against the NL Central, both on the road, both 4-game sets. Chicago, then Pittsburgh. So what a time to get him back, but not a time that you want to be at the All-Star break messing around with the lineup. And the lineup's just been changed so much, and you don't know where Matheny's at and with some of the players and things like that, and where he wants them to play and wants them to bat. That the whole lineup thinks is a cluster. And now what are you going to do with a guy like Pham if he gets hot? Right now you have been taking the good and the bad with Grichuk, even though he's still batting .250. Still a lot of strikeouts. So, do you take the good with the bad with him with the power and the defense he has showed, or do you take what you've seen in a little bit you're going to see from Tommy Pham? Because now you got to keep Borges out of the running because you need instant offense from wherever you can get it, and Borges isn't that. The Cardinals want him to be that. You could tell that they want him to be at the top of that lineup. Every time he's in the game, he's at the top of the lineup. He's batting first almost every time that he's in the game. That he's starting, at least. But I think he's kind of your fourth outfielder in this situation that you're in. And you got to figure out what you're going to do with Grichuk and Pham. And I'm not saying like Pham's the next coming, because he's not. But just, it's been something that you didn't have over the last week or so. I mean, you didn't run into a like the greatest pitching in the world, but Chris Sale's a pretty good pitcher. Andrew Kastner for San Diego's a pretty good pitcher. And then Ian Kennedy's a pretty good pitcher, just having a down year. But it's not like you ran into Grimke, Kershaw, or Felix Hernandez all in a row or anything. After Chris Sale, there was really nothing after that, and you got nothing on offense. Absolutely zero. I mean, it was Grichuk against Sale. That was it. And then Peralta. That was it. You were 1 for 13 in the game that Cooney started with runners in scoring position. You were 0 for 5 the next night with Walker. And then Pham the next 2 games. But with the way that the Cardinals kind of like to play their favorites with the players that they've signed or had on their team for a while, you're kind of lost on where to go with the offense. Now, Matheny's reason for putting Pham up there was a split Carpenter and Wanga. And I don't think it was the right move to leave Carpenter where he was. I think it was the move to move Carpenter down, or to Wong down to 2 and maybe Carpenter down to 5 or 6. I mean, Carpenter's 19 for 96 in his last 30 games, a 198 batting average, 240 slug, and 23 Ks. That's not the Matt Carpenter we're accustomed to. I mean, Wong's 2 for his last 21, so it's not any better from there, but Carpenter's is more of a long pace, almost 100 at bats, and batting 198. I mean, that's just something that you haven't seen for him ever. And definitely with the strikeouts. I mean, he's not this guy that doesn't strike out, had 100 strikeouts over the last 3 years. But he's not in a good-looking comfort zone. He seems very uncomfortable at the plate. So I think moving him down would have been the move. But at that point, you kind of look at some of the stats. I mean, 2 for 21 for Wong. I mean, so you were kind of at a buzzsaw with that. And maybe you could have moved some other guys around. But you kind of want to keep that middle of the order where it's at with that Holiday in there. So it would be hard to move a guy like a Hayward to that 2 slot. Or a guy like Grichuk. Guys that provide you power and protect them better hitters than Molina and Hayward and Peralta. But it's going to help with Holiday coming back because now you know you have that spot filled. And he was actually hitting with runners in scoring position, and he wasn't the same at Holiday with the power, but he was hitting for a very high average in the main part of your lineup. 3, 4, 5. But then you're going to have to work on center field in that top spot of the lineup. And I'm at a loss of what to do. Because they want to hold back the stressful innings, but if you're not scoring runs, isn't every inning for a pitcher somewhat stressful? That you have to pitch much tighter when you allow just a 1 hit? When you allow that runner in the scoring position? I mean, think of how many bases loaded, 1 out situations it seems like Lance Lynn's gotten out of. Martinez has gotten out of a lot of them. So I just keep worrying about things like that. Definitely with a guy like Walker with that stress reaction, it doesn't really good when you're putting stress innings and stress reaction together. A guy like Carmart, who's never done it before. Lynn seemed to find something to where he can allow all these hits and runs, or not, a lot of hits and a lot of walks, and seemingly get out of all the innings. Which does that make you that comfortable? And you know what you're going to get from Lackey, no matter what, but you can tell at times that is even in his head about the offense. Definitely when bad plays are made in the field while he's pitching, you can just kind of tell he's like, oh, that's the one play I needed you to make almost, you know? And you got to kind of look at Matheny, though, and just hope that he doesn't fall back into that. Well, I got to get Jay. I got to keep all the players happy. I got to get Jay at bats when he comes back. Because you're at the point now where your pitching has kept you so far above the boat that you need to give something back to them. The offense hasn't had to carry this team at any point this season. I mean, if you just throw in the start from the night, the Cardinals already have 57 quality starts this season, only 3 by Wainwright. I mean, that's some ridiculous stats right there. 53 in just 83 games. Or, 57 in 83 games. And only 3 are your best pitcher on the staff. Your ace of the staff. And then another stat that Bernie put out there was over the last 3+ seasons, the Cardinals are 238-96 in quality starts, a 7.12 winning percentage. Starters have a 1.7 ERA. Now you would look at quality starts and say 6 innings, 3 runs or less, and that's a 4.50 ERA. So that's not looking at like the best way to look at that stat. But if you look at that stat from the way it was put out there, 1.71 ERA. That's much more than a quality start. I mean, that's over 3 seasons that your pitching has dominated the league. And it's doing it again this season. Somehow. Without, and I almost said the Blues. Without the Cardinals almost scoring any runs. And I really don't know where to put the lineup and how to position some of these players. Definitely when Halladay comes back, because you know he's going to squeeze into 3. And you have Peralta at 4. And then with Hayward been hitting the way he was, he has him at 5. But now you're kind of confused on what you do. After that, most likely Molina at 6. But after that, you're pretty much lost. You got to find a place for your 1 and 2. And then also, who's going to go at the bottom of the line? And I think with the way to splitting up the lineup, like Matheny did with the right-hander and left-hander, is going to have to end up being Wong and Grichuk. Lefty-righty. And then you go to Halladay. Even though that kind of clusters up the righties until you get to number 5 with Peralta. So it's a big old thing and a big old situation for a team that's got the best record in the league. It's almost, and like I said when I started off, it's confusing. It doesn't make any sense. And I just can't see how to make it any better. Because you pretty much seen what you're going to get because you're halfway through the season. But it has to get better somehow. And Halladay's going to help. And then but then after that, you have to figure out that top spot in the lineup. And maybe you throw Carpenter back there and get him going. Maybe that gets him going again. Maybe he gets some kind of resurgence, feels good about getting to that top spot. Maybe you try to throw the Grichuk thing in there again. Maybe you try to get him back up there. Maybe it does end up being Pham. Maybe you go back to Wong. That's another rotating door. But the problem is sometimes that rotating door stops. And it takes a while for it to get started again. So we'll see what we get from the Cardinals over this stretch. Definitely a big stretch when you're going to play your top 2 division teams in the Cubs and the Pirates. So big series here going in the All-Star break for the Cardinals. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back, talk a little bit about that TJ Oshie trade next on the Sports Blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You could tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You could tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL SN, or like us on Facebook now at the Greater STL Sports Network. And the Blues finally made a trade to kind of shake up what has been a disappointing lineup in the playoffs. But you can't look at this trade and think it's just going to change the world. And that's that TJ Oshie was traded to the Washington Capitals for forward Trey Browner, a third-round pick of 2016, and goalie prospect Phoenix Copley. And if you look at the stats and kind of get into them a little bit, they're almost essentially the same player. But Browner's more of a physical player, more of that down low in the crease, more David Backes type of player. And that seems to what the Blues want to go and play, is that physical in the crease, deflecting a lot of pucks, blocking the goalie, getting into people's head type of game. But it was probably time to start doing something to not only change up the team, but also get some much needed salary cap relief. You saved $500,000, which doesn't sound like a lot in this trade. And I really didn't think about it before when I looked through the stats. But you can actually say that Brouwer is a better scorer than Oshie. And I thought Oshie was a much better goal scorer than he was. But in his years in St. Louis, since being a first-round pick in 2005, number 24 overall, he's only had one 20-goal season. Now, Brouwer, even being the more physical guy, being that in-the-net guy, doing the dirty work, he's actually had 3 20-goal seasons. Another thing with this contract is TJ Oshie's contract wasn't over until after the 16-17 season. Brouwer's is over after this year. So there's more salary cap relief, getting another 3.75 off the books to help you keep the Tarasenko's, Schwartz's, and the players that can make a difference on this team. I mean, your best line last year was that STL line with Schwartz, Tarasenko, and Laterra. And you re-upped Laterra with a 3-year contract earlier in the week, so big doings there to keep one of the only things that worked for you all season together. But if you look in the playoffs, that's kind of where my problem is. That the people were saying, oh, he brings tons of playoff experience playing in the playoffs all the times he did. I mean, but he's just another TJ Oshie in the playoffs. Just like last year, if you go to TJ Oshie, said 72 games, 19 goals, 36 assists, though, 55 points, a plus 17. Brouwer in 82 games, scored more goals, had 21, 22 assists with a plus 11, and that was 43 points. But in the playoffs, Brouwer, 14 games, 3 assists, a minus 3. Now, Oshie doesn't get much far off. 6 games, so Brouwer more than double his games. 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points, a minus 3. So it's not like you're going to come and Troy Brouwer's going to be this big goal scorer for you. He's just not that. And I hope the Blues aren't building up for you where you have too many of them type of guys. and build maybe them guys that you can build around for the Tarasenkos to get their better shots, get more goal chances with the goalie screened, and bigger guys to move the players out of the way. So you can look at it in that sense, but really this is just a money trade. You need to sign your younger players, and you need to sign them now. Definitely Tarasenko. Definitely Swartz. And getting a guy like Oshie off the books of saving that $500,000, plus you save another 4 or 5 next year by losing his contract. Another thing it does, though, like I've said, is open up spots for Ty Ratty, for Robbie Robbie. And that's what you kind of want from, if you look at them guys' stats, you kind of want them guys to start making a difference because these are goal scorers. They proved it in the AHL, they proved it in all their other leagues, that these guys can go out and score goals. And I read something today that the Blues, looking at him, this is probably Robbie's chance to get, a 9-day tryout, something the NHL likes to do. It wouldn't be nice to see a fresh face in here have some impact for the Blues? Not to see the TJ Oshie's no more, but maybe a Ty Ratty coming out there and actually putting the puck on the net and scoring goals and not trying all this moving around and thinking you're a better deker than everybody. Because in this game, it doesn't work. Guys are just going to maul you. They're going to wait for you to make your move. And these defensemen are a lot better at that. I mean, if you watch the Blues in the playoffs and when they try to make their moves, Tarasenko, Oshie, Schwartz, the guy was just wait and just check them right at the line. So maybe them guys come up and you have a guy like Brouwer that, affects that kind of stuff, that goes and kind of blocks them defense, and where a guy like Ratty, Farabee, Tarasenko, Schwartz make a difference that you've needed over the past few seasons. But don't look at this trade as nothing special. Look at this trade as a money dump and building draft picks. You also get a prospect goalie out of it that last year in the AHL was 17-4-3 with a 2.17 goals against. So maybe that's your backup to Allen in a year or two. Or maybe even sooner than that. Because Elliott's probably going to go out here sooner or later and want a better deal and want a starting job after he's proved what he's proved in the regular season. But this was just a smart trade for money-wise for the Blues to get money off the books, to sign your top players, and kind of build some depth. And that's what you're going to see, a lot of signings from the Blues now, with this little bit of extra money. And want to sign them guys, you're just going to see the Kyle Brodziaks, who the Blues signed, Andre Benoit, Bertuzzo got a contract, Chris Butler. They're just going to be depth guys that are signed. And you might have to wait another year with this team. We're impatient, I understand that, but at least they're trying something. At least they're actually going for players now that work to their style. And also, when they're talking about moving Backus out to the winger, Brouwer's was 51% in his faceoffs last year. So, a guy that can go out there and do multiple facets for you. So, it's just, but overall, it's a money dump trade, and that's the way that we need to look at it. All right, we'll move on to, and we'll go back to something I said I wasn't going to talk about unless something really actually happened, and something did happen in the Cardinals' little Houston Astros hacking scandal as Cardinals fired scouting director Chris Correa over the July 4th weekend. Now, Correa has been with the team since 2009 and had just promoted to scouting director after one of the Cardinals' recent departures went to the A's. But you kind of read this story, and this is kind of a funny story to read about it, as most of the story in the Post-Dispatch is stated from a source. But I'm going to read some excerpts of the story, and you see how you take on it. The story states that a source has said to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that Correa's involvement in the hacking scandal started in 2013 in an attempt to determine whether Lunau or any other former Cardinals employees took priority data to the Astros. His suspicions were aroused in part by a resume by a job seeker in which it claimed he had experience that Correa believed could only have come from working with Cardinals data. Now, this is where the story gets a little more deep. He used old passwords from a former Cardinals employee working for the Astros. So, a former Cardinals employee working for the Astros to access Houston's database. He accessed it a few times but did not download any of the data. The source claimed Correa did find some data on the site that could be comparable to the Cardinals, but did not report it to his bosses because it was either outdated or unreliable without being fixed. The source also stated that others must have been in the hacked the Houston database if the FBI claims of the number of hacking attempts are correct. The source also said that Correa has cooperated with the Cardinals investigation, but has been told, Correa has cooperated with the Cardinals investigation after being told essentially, talk or you're fired, but has not been spoken to by the FBI. That's where the part of the story from the source that doesn't make any sense. Because if he was part of the whole thing in the beginning, and now you're starting to find out about it from his own words, then shouldn't I have been one of the first people the FBI talked to? You would think it would have been, but are they investigating them hacks? Maybe they figured out that no data was stolen or anything like that with all this technology they got, and they moved on down. But the greatest part of the story is this guy's lawyer is, this is the guy I want to be my lawyer. Correa's lawyer said, Mr. Correa denies any illegal conduct. The reluctant inquiry should be, what info did the former STL Cardinals employee steal from the St. Louis Cardinals organization on prior to joining the Astros? Or who in the Astros organization authorized or consented to or benefited from this roguish behavior? Now that's kind of cool if that's your lawyer, because he just made it sound like it's someone else's problem, it's someone else's fault, I did nothing wrong. I kind of like that. I mean, you would like that if your lawyer, the first statement you heard from your lawyer, was that he denies any allegations to any of this, and it's these people's fault. It's Jeff Lunau's fault. It's whoever hired these Cardinals employees and let them run this data through the Houston Astros system. If that's how it went down. You gotta remember, this is only a source. But it's kind of a little scary that it's hit this high up with the scouting director, even though at the time of doing all this, he was just another regular employee. He wasn't just a guy that overseen 20 to 30 people. But you hope that, really, with this investigation team thing, where the Cardinals said they told him, talk or you're fired, what if he put something on there that I kind of let you guys know that people are going to see now and think, something different about the whole situation. But it's just all kind of weird to me that a source came out too, though, and claimed to know all this stuff without anybody else knowing it. But, I mean, some people do got good connects in certain situations, and they use them. And I'm sure the people in the Post-Dispatch investigated every single thing this guy said, and it came to be, I wouldn't say 100% true, but 99% true. But I wonder how many more branches are going to fall in this hacking tree. Hee hee. Because are the 20 employees under the scouting director going to get fired too? Because maybe they knew something about it already? Are there guys that was working with Cray the whole time that we haven't heard about yet? Or was this a roguish behavior on his part and his part alone? So it's just something new from a slowly moving story that I don't know. I just kind of have this feeling that maybe MLB, the FBI, and the Cardinals are all kind of working together to make this last as long as possible. That this doesn't come out maybe during the season or maybe during the playoffs. Maybe it doesn't come out till after. I mean, that's what I guess you would kind of hope for, is it came out after the World Series is won. Definitely if the Cardinals were to make a deep run in the playoffs, you wouldn't want this to even be talked about at that time, to even be thought about. But it's going to be talked about until you know everything out there. So maybe a better time to do it is now. But I don't know. I know nothing about this situation in a legal sense or in a smart person sense or anything like that. But just something news from the story I thought I'd pass along to you. All right, we're going to take another break. We're going to come right back. Hometown Rundown next. Sports Blog, Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at RBowlesbyJR. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL SN. Also like us on Facebook. And also, I don't say it enough, please subscribe to the YouTube page. They're on YouTube. Links are on the Facebook and the Twitter. Alright, let's get this segment off started as we always do with the Hometown Rundown. And we'll start off with St. Louis FC as they started a 2-game road trip on Wednesday. First against the Wilmington Hammerheads in North Carolina at Legion Stadium. And even with 12 shots, 6 of them all goal, St. Louis couldn't get anything done or any balls to the back of the net. And they played to a draw with the Hammerheads 0-0. Jeremy Lynch, who's been probably the best player in FC, if you watch him, he's in every play. Either making an assist or getting a lot of shots off towards the net. He led the team with 5 shots, and goalie Alec Khan made 5 saves in the game. FC earns a point and runs their record to 3-5-6, 15 points. FC played again on Saturday on the road on the 4th of July against the Charlotte Independents. So what a team, perfect team to play on Independence Day. You play the Charlotte Independence. You know that was kind of planned, but it's kind of cool that St. Louis FC in their first run through of the USL, that they get the first crack at the Independence on the 4th of July. And it was finally, it seems like it's been so long, but the St. Louis FC finally earned 3 points and got a win, winning the game 2-1. St. Louis scored first in the 6th minute on a header from Parker Mayhem, his first of the season, an assist from Patrick Duty, who was called up by the Chicago Fire earlier in the week and then sent back to FC for these couple games. The Independents did tie the game in the 68th minute on a one-timer, and that made the score at a 1-1. But in the 89th minute, St. Louis FC substitute Kingsley Bruce scored on a rebound for the game winner in his first of the season. Alex Khan made 8 saves on the net, and Bryce was named the Pleats Player of the Match. I actually found it for once. I hardly ever find it, but I actually found it for this one. So Kingsley Bryce wins the Pleats Player of the Match, runs FC's record to 4-5-6. 3 points gets them to 18 points in the USL, and they'll come back home to play at Worldwide Technology Park in Fenton to face the Richmond Kickers at 7:30. Alright, let's move on to the River City Rascals. They started a series in Normal, Illinois on Tuesday against the Normal Corn Belters. The series started with a doubleheader, with the Normers winning both 6-3, 6-5 respectively. Starting pitching for the Rascals only went a total of 9 innings in the 2 games, allowing 6 runs. Josh Ludy and Taylor Ard and Hector Crespo all homered in Game 2 of the doubleheader. But the Corn Belters powered over the Rascals. In Game 3 of the series, Taylor Ard and Josh Ludy combined for 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. But the Corn Belters again out-homered the Rascals, winning at 8-4. In the final game of the series, Normal swept the series, winning the game 7-3. Sending the Rascals on their way to start another series, this one in Kentucky versus the Florence Freedom. And in Game 1, the Rascals lost their 5th straight, losing the game 8-5. In Game 2, Tim Coons kept his undefeated record going and extended his winning his 6th game of the year, ending the Rascals' losing streak, winning the game 3-1. He went 9 innings in a complete game, only allowed 1 earned run, 4 hits, 1 walk, and 9 Ks. The Rascals scored all 3 of their runs in the 7th inning for the win. And in the Game 3, though, the Florence Freedom took the series with the Rascals losing 5-1. This runs the Rascals' record to 23-21. They come back home to play again Tuesday, July 7th at TR Hughes Ballpark in O'Fallon with a 3-game series against the Lake Erie Crushers. Now, just for some little fun news and notes, out there Friday night, as I actually mentioned the wrong team when I said it the first time, but this Friday night, Pete Rose will be out there at O'Fallon at TR Hughes Ballpark. So it'd be kind of cool if you could make it out there to see him. I might try to go out there, maybe get an autograph, watch him coach some first and third base. And for the All-Star game on July 15th in the Frontier League in Scandenburg, Illinois, catcher Josh Ludy, third baseman Taylor Ard, outfielders Brian Hansen and Curran Riddell, and DH Danny Cannella all made the All-Star team. So 5 Rascals out of your starting 8, that's pretty good for an all-star team, even with their losing streak they've been on. Alright, let's move right along to weird news. And it's kind of some messed up news, too. I might just switch it up. I was going to start off with the best story, but I'll start off with another one. as a man who grew up in Pacific, Missouri, died after being attacked by an alligator in Orange, Texas. The man apparently mocked the alligators before taking his shirt off and jumping into a pool, and people immediately called for help. The man was pronounced dead on the scene a few hours later. I mean, really, this couple of these things, 3 things in these of the 4 stories are going to be things not to do. You got 2 in this story. Don't taunt alligators. Don't jump in a... They were at a marina in Orange County, Texas. Don't jump in a marina where it says there's a sign that says there's alligators in the water. And I'm not trying to make light of the story. I mean, this is kind of funny. It's not a story that you see every day. But it's kind of weird. And then we'll have 2 firework-related incidents, and I'll move the good story for last. A man in Maine died after lighting a firework off the top of his head. Onlookers said it was an accident as the man was playing around and held one of the mortar tubes with a firework inside of it while holding a lighter when the firework accidentally went off. It's just another don't do story. And the mortar tubes, what they're talking about is the long tubes that you put the little balls in, that fireworks shoot high, and you get the best fireworks there are. I mean, that had to be a powerful shot. And of course, that guy was pronounced dead on the scene. And then we get to Jason Pierre-Paul, defensive end for the New York Giants, who injured both hands in a fire-related accident, where he reportedly has severe burn damage on his palm and 3 fingers, with one finger possibly having nerve damage. The Giants had a $60 million offer for Jason Pierre-Paul on the table, but according to the NFL Network, they have rescinded it. So I don't know what kind of firework he had to where I've actually hurt my palm messing with them Bobcat ones. Just a guy making $60 million and he doesn't have somebody not making $60 million to go out there and mess with the fireworks. I know it's a lot funner to light the fireworks, but you had this contract sitting there, and there were reports that he wanted a better contract, that he thought he was one of the best players in the league. So, if you really wanted that contract, I don't know if I'd be messing around with fireworks. It could have ruined his career. That could have ruined his career. And who knows what the Giants are going to do now. Probably, the contract's probably rescinded so they can make some stupid claim that people doing all contracts that you can't do this, that, and the other. And his is going to be he's not allowed to play with fireworks anymore. But, yeah. I don't know if I had $60 million on the table if I'm going out there and playing with Bobcats and Roman candles or anything like that, anything of the sort. If someone had me a $60 million contract waiting for me whenever I felt like signing it. Alright, we'll get to the good story now. In Chicago, a man was fired from McDonald's for putting his mixtapes into McDonald's Happy Meals. Tyshawn Grage of Chicago put his CDs in a paper disc holder with Tales of a Real N-Word printed in a Sharpie marker. Sources say the man could have been putting in the mixtape for 2 weeks or up to 300 meals. Tyshawn defended his actions by saying his mixtape was so hot it would keep the Happy Meals warm for hours. Wow. His mixtape was so hot it was going to keep the Happy Meal warm. And man, was he supposedly wasn't putting the toys in there. You're depriving little kids of happiness. You're never going to be famous for anything now. You've deprived little kids of some toy that a 3-year-old can't touch because there's supposedly something wrong with it, where they could choke on it or anything like that. And also, that parent got your crappy CD and they had to spend $5 on a goddamn Happy Meal. So not only I only feel bad for the kids, man, I feel bad for the parents. I know. I have kids. I know that them Happy Meals are ridiculously expensive. And this guy's putting in his mixtape. And now you're driving home, you put the mixtape in, and it's some random ass song, and now your kid's mad, and he's crying the whole way home, and you don't know what to do, and you're ready to drive the car off the end of the road, but yeah, so that was the best one. I just couldn't see anybody doing that, but just, you could at least put the toy in there. You could at least done that. You could have, maybe the parents would have listened to your CD if you would have, kept their kids quiet for a couple minutes with some stupid Mickey Mouse toy. But there's your weird news for this week. And wow, this NBA stuff is insanely crazy to me. And I don't understand why all these free agents are signing now before this salary cap thing goes up. But there's a lot of guys getting big money that you wouldn't even think deserved it. But this little mini All-Star theme teams that I was telling you about really starting to come to fruition. And I wasn't joking about when I said these teams are going to start doing this. It's the way to roll. Players are going to want to win championships. And the Spurs are really just popping it off. You hear Ginobili's going to come back. You sign and re-sign a guy, one of your best players in Danny Green. He gets paid $45 million over 4 years. I don't think he's exactly worth that, but with the TV and money going up, you can afford to pay a guy like that when you're about to boost this all kinds of revenue to where you, maybe next year, you would have to pay him a $60 to $70 million deal, or maybe even a max deal, because he knows you got that money out there. And then they come back after Ginobili and Green and get to LaMarcus Aldridge for a 4-year max deal for around $80 million. And that's a good way to just say, oh, yeah, Duncan might retire, but we'll just replace him with one of the best power forward big men in the league. And they're in a league in the West that's already been starting it with, like I said, Pierce going to the Clippers, and then that whole Golden State team thing with Iguodala, Sean Livingston, guys like that. But they're not the only ones doing it. You got a team like the Kings going out there paying a center in Costa Kufas, who nobody knows, $4,033,000. Rondo gets a 1-year deal for $19.5, so he's waiting for that money, but he goes to Sacramento. And then they pick up another guy, this guy from the Spurs, so you know he knows how to play and he knows about winning, but Marco Bellinelli. And then they got their guys like Cousins, and then they got also a pretty good player in Ben McLemore and some other guys there. But then the Mavs come back, and you kind of feel bad for Portland as they just re-signed Lillard. But they lost 3 guys in this. Wesley Matthews is a really good player, but went to the Mavs along with DeAndre Jordan. So you get rid of Tyson Chandler for probably a better Tyson Chandler. Plus Dirk Nowitzki, Amari Stoudemire, and all the talent you got there. And then you lose Robin Lopez, the Trailblazers, due to the Knicks. So it's kind of a bad deal for the situation for Portland. But some of this money that's being spent too, Warriors trying to keep their little team together. 5 years, $85 million for Draymond Green. the Raptors paid DeMarre Carroll 4 years, $60 million. And I love DeMarre Carroll. But 4 years, $60 million sounds like a Kobe contract. Not a DeMarre Carroll contract. I mean, a guy who's not a big scoring center, but a pretty good defensive center. Paul Millsap gets 3 years, $50 million plus. And I'm thinking, and the only way I can see that is that teams think these are deals because the salary cap's going to go way up next year with all the TV contracts or something. So right now, these are deals for teams. I wonder how the contracts are going to be next year. I mean, Monte Ellis is a really good player. Went to Indiana, 4 years, $44 million. They also kept Ronnie Stuckey for another team that's building around a bunch of players instead of a few. But this money that they're just putting out here for some of these players, then you see a guy like David West going to the Spurs with Aldridge and Danny Green. Another really good player, a player I've liked since he was in New Orleans to Indiana. Now he's going to be at the Spurs. But he takes a veteran's minimum contract to win. And all the salary cap's really going this much where you can build them kind of teams. I mean, you've seen the ratings in St. Louis, so obviously the NBA is getting some kind of boost from somewhere for all this money to be flowing in like that. Because these look like contracts that you see in football and baseball. Gasol with Memphis, 5 years, $110 million. He's a really good player, but that's a baseball contract. You wouldn't expect that. Definitely in a lower 82 game season compared to the 162. But they also do it in the NFL. I mean, they get a $100 million contract for only playing 16 games. So some of this money that's been thrown around is just somewhat outrageous to me. I mean, a team like the Bucks paid out $50 million to Greg Monroe to get him from Detroit to Milwaukee. I didn't think that they had that kind of money. Neither with the Pacers, 4 years, $44 million. The Suns, 4 years, $52 to Chandler. Brandon Knight, 5 years, $70. I mean, that's a crazy contract to me. Definitely by NBA standards. But just shows you, once they figure out a way to make money, that they're going to take it to the fullest extent. And all these businesses have done it. Major League Baseball, the NFL. And now with soccer starting to come along, you're starting to get people more into lacrosse. Probably because they figured out a way to budget their money to get these sponsors and somehow get these people watching. I mean, it's ridiculous. The NHL versus the NBA Finals were in St. Louis. But St. Louis is one of the top 2 cities that are watching soccer. Kansas City, number 1. So it seems like there's something new for soccer coming along here as time goes on. But to seeing these many all-star teams kind of tells you, I knew I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I'd seen it just by watching that series. Because you knew the Cavs were trying to pick up on a guy like Ray Allen, who's basically now, the Cavs are trying to pick up a guy like Joe Johnson. Basically a Ray Allen 3-point shoot type player, makes big shots. But now you've added Love. LeBron's not going anywhere. He's playing around with the money for some odd reason. I don't understand it. But let LeBron be LeBron. Maybe it brings more publicity, which brings more money to the fans, to the stadium, to the Cavaliers, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand it. But you see, it's just moving along like that. All right, let's keep it in the NBA. It's kind of a little rumor that's been floating around that you're reading on the sites like Bleacher Report is that the Kings are gonna talking about maybe firing George Karl because of his insistence to trade DeMarcus Cousins. I kind of want to know what that inside beef is, because Cousins did have a career year last year. But is there something that Karl sees in him that he knows is not going to work, either in the NBA or maybe in his offense alone? I mean, George Karl, 23 playoff appearances in 25 years. So the guy knows how to coach. He's also been a player, and his son wasn't a player. So he probably knows the NBA inside and out and kind of knows what works and what's not going to work. And I wonder what his beef is with DeMarcus Cousins. And it's exciting reports that you kind of maybe don't want to get rid of Karl because then now you know you're going to give Cousins all the power. And I don't think it's Sacramento. You kind of want to turn that into a Kobe situation where he's just holding you back with all his power and money. I don't think I would want to be in that situation, but I wouldn't want to be in this situation if I was the Kings ownership and their head man of basketball relations, which is a great guy, great player, and Vlade Divac. To let go of a guy like George Karl that has the past he had, and we've had the recent years that we've had winning games. But in this NBA, if you look at all these contracts, you could probably get whatever you wanted for DeMarcus Cousins. And probably do a whole kind of an extra rebuild thing. Get some young players to mix them with Rondo and Bellinelli and the other guys you got. So I wouldn't want to be in that situation, and we'll see what happens. And maybe this Cousins and Karl make up. Definitely was, since the Kings are actually trying to make some additions to make the team better. And last but not least, there's been a little news in this stadium situation. You gotta kind of feel bad for this guy, David Hunt of the Post-Dispatch. His job was kind of just doing government politics and little on and stuff. And you know they're not letting him off that. And now he's got to deal with the stadium situation for the Rams. Because it really becomes a government and political situation. This is a kind of his article from June 30th, but this lawsuit where basically these guys have kind of interpreted the Rams' contract with the Dome in their own way. Now, basically what they're saying is that the money raised by the Dome and the Rams, which is $8.5 yearly from the city motel tax, does not cover the payments on the Dome. And it instead pledges that the money be paid towards the debt on the city's convention center. Now, it also says that the Rams produce an estimated $4.2 million a year from just ticket sales, payroll, and concessions alone. Of that 17.7 annual debt payment that's supposed to go towards what they're saying is the convention center. But all this money is coming from the Edward Jones Dome. Now, what they have said the whole time is they don't want to put a new tax burden on taxpayers. But just by essentially saying that right there, that you're paying this much for the south wing of the convention center, that's still a tax that's going to be there until it's paid off. And it's not going to change until the Edward Jones Dome is paid off. Now, part of the problem is the city's the one, they're filing this in the city. But the county and the state also have to contribute a lot, $20 million a year, just from them two entities. So, blocking this would kind of be saying F that $20 million. Or at least the $12 million that the state provides of that $20 million. And then these guys, they just bring up every part of the contract to try to say things like, well, it says in there that a new stadium would have to be adjacent to the dome. And then the lawyer in this situation, Judge Frowley, kind of says, hey, I'm going to act, and puts it down, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? And they have no answer for him other than to say, well, it's vaguely worded. But this is just the problem with this stadium, is that things like this are going to keep holding back all the proceedings, to find the money, to know that you're going to be able to get the land and all that. But what happens when you don't have this money anymore? And that's what they don't understand, is when they don't have this extra money that they've been having to pay for all these things. And that the city of St. Louis is the one who messed this whole situation up by having this crazy worded contract. But not getting the funding and not getting the land by a certain time. And now you got the Carson City Council also fighting with some infighting. And then all quietly, this Inglewood project just moving along and moving along. And for some reason, we don't understand that. And now, with all this clamoring and stuff keep going on, you've already built up this, with all these renderings and all these lawyer fees and stuff like that, you've already cost yourself $5 million, because that money's not coming out of Jay Nixon's pocket. That's coming out of your pocket, the people that pay taxes. But yet, we're going to keep fighting with these guys who say, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this for the city, who have been saying, we're going to do this and this and this and this for the city for the last 20 years since the Rams been here. And they've done nothing. They keep saying, oh, we tried, and we can't get this and we can't get that. Because it's people like you that stop these kind of things, that, oh, we don't want to put another tax burden. Because the people already pay too many taxes. Well, this is your fault for taking all our taxes before this and doing nothing with it. And even if it is, that tax is lost, and I've said it and I'll say it over again, they're gonna find a way to tax you for something else. And I mean, that's just how politics are. And all these guys are just aiming for politics. And that's what's happening in Carson. And all these guys are fighting for their careers. Political. I said political. Political careers. And that's all that's happened here. And it's just funny. Like, they're bitching about them saying it has to be adjacent. But like things like the judge asked how much Farley asked so you could build it and fit and draw the complex boundaries to fit the definition of adjacent. One of the attorneys from the Blitz and the Dome Authority answered yes. In fact, he added, every building that the Dome Authority builds has to be multi-purpose by law, so it's its own convention center, he said. So it's just kind of funny. And then you get these guys from St. Louis, Missouri, who are just trying to get their name out there. Probably got some book that he wrote that didn't make no money. And this John Amon guy, and he just acts like it's all about the people. That the people should have their chances to vote. And the people should get defense on their ordinances by their politics. But he's that guy from St. Louis U who didn't complain when St. Louis U got all their stuff rebuilt. But this is a case that's going on right now that's already extending into July, and probably is going to be at least a few more weeks before the judge rules on what he thinks should happen. So now you're in August. They said final publication is in January, yet it could be moved up. So September, October, November, December, 4 months where it could knock you down to 2 months. And yet you're arguing about what adjacent means. Or that the bonds don't cover a new stadium. They cover some wing of the convention center. That these people that make $100,000 could just lower their salary, but they're not going to do that. Because why would they do that when they can just say, hey, someone's going to raise your taxes and this is not doing it at all? Same thing kind of happened in Carson while this Inglewood project is flowing along. And nobody's even talking about it. It's out of the news, unlike the newspaper every day having to put this crap in there about some politician wanting to get his way. And then now you hear about the Carson infighting. So now it's getting worse and worse. In a situation where you didn't think it could get any worse. And then it got better. And now it's getting worse and worse and worse again. So people got an understanding. Again, this is not just about the Rams football team. This is about the whole city. And something like this could help revitalize the city. But you have to figure out a way to stop crime also. Alright, that's going to do it for this week. I'm Robert Bowlesby, and this is the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network.